everyone. My name is Soojin Kim. I am a lecturer in philosophy at Yonsei University. Today, I am not a presenter, but a moderator. It is a great honor to be the moderator. This is session 4A. We will meet two presenters in this session. First of all, I would like to thank you for responding to the presentation. The first speaker is Cynthia Liu, who is from Oxford University and will soon become a PhD. And the title of the presentation is Re-Evaluating Images in Plato Philosophy Through His Use of Mystery Language. And the second speaker is Dr. Yikai Zheng from National Taiwan University. And the title of the presentation is Speeches as Images of Being in Fido and Sophist. The presentation lasts 20 minutes and the discussion time is 10 minutes. Presenters, please check the time. And there is one more important request for both presenters. We don't have enough information from the presenters. So I would appreciate if Presenter Liu and Presenter Zheng gave a brief introduction before the presentation for everyone. Then I hope everyone enjoys Symposium of Image. Presenter Liu, please start with the self-introduction and presentation first. Hello.
Hello. Can everyone hear? Okay. Lovely to meet you all, and thank you so much to the organizing committee for hosting this conference. So I will be talking about the place of mystery imagery in Plato's dialogues and how that informs the role of repetition and recollection in his philosophical learning. Let me just pull my paper out. Am I good to begin? Okay, thank you. So in this paper, I will explore the process of Plato's philosophical system in relation to the Eleusinian mysteries, whose framework and imagery Plato utilizes to describe the progression from sense perception, aesthesis, to recollection, anamnesis, and dialectic to the noetic vision of the forms. I will show that an improved understanding of the relationship between the teleia and epopteia of Eleusis sheds new light on the relationship between aesthesis, anamnesis, and memory of the forms in Plato's analogous philosophic mysteries. First, I suggest a restructuring of the steps of philosophic learning that maps onto a revised reconstruction of the Eleusinian mystery rites. Based on this new framework, I argue that the place of images, especially sensible phenomena in Plato's philosophy, can be rehabilitated by understanding the process of philosophic learning, like mystery rites, as repetitive. Finally, I will then extend the mystery analogy to Plato's dialogues as written logoi to illuminate a way in which readers in and throughout time can approach the texts as images of a way of life. Can I just check that everyone has the handout?
We can, maybe we can not see, we cannot see your handout, right? Everyone?
Ah, okay, I thought it was shared. 1 second, let me just.
Make public your paper, please. Try again.
How about now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
See. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we're here now. So it is necessary to begin with a brief overview of the Eleusinian mysteries. I refer here to the beginning of my handout. So Ridvig provides the most influential reconstruction of the Eleusinian mysteries, a tripartite division that he maps onto Diotima's speech in the Symposium. However, Reidved's reconstruction misidentifies muesis and epopteia with the lesser and greater mysteries, respectively, when, in fact, the former are two distinct experiences of the greater mysteries. Dowden rightly showed that muesis is initiation in the strictest sense, namely preliminary preparation and purification, and that epopteia was simply the repeated experience or experiences of the teleia, both the lesser and greater rites, which initiate could experience for the first time as mustes with vision somehow impaired, and in subsequent years as epoptes, fully viewing the climactic revelation of the deity. In sum, there was no rite for the epoptes separate from the mustes, but rather they experienced the same teleia as the mustes, but at a more involved level of engagement. More specifically, epopteia refers to that specific part or climax of the teleia, the moment of revelation, which was experienced for the first time with vision impaired and in later iterations with full vision. By way of clarification, I offer in my handout a revised structure of the Eleusinian rites. We can apply this improved understanding of the mystery process to the passage of the Symposium where discussion of Plato's philosophic rites usually begins, and this is number 1 on the handout. Here, Diotima proceeds from the muesis to the teleia and epopteia of philosophy. Given the juxtaposition, of erotica muetheis and teleia kai epoptica, it seems that muestai in this context refers to the performance of muesis specifically, rather than to first-time experience of the rites. Thus, the erotica are the preparation and purification of the philosophic initiand for the rites proper. The following sections on love of beauty, moving from sense perception to individual bodies and learning of intelligible concepts to the culminating noetic vision of beauty itself, are the teleia and epoptica of philosophy. It is clear that the final face-to-face vision of beauty is the epoptica, so the teleia themselves consists of the process of moving through sensible images and intelligible things. Before drawing out the implications of this improved understanding of mystery ritual for the relationship between aesthesis and form vision, I will clarify what each mystery rite step entails in philosophic learning. Much like mystery muesis, philosophic muesis is concerned with the preparation of the initiand. Diotima's philosophic muesis, which appears in the Symposium as her doctrine of erotica, begins with the definition, as you can see in item number 2 on the handout, of eros as mediator between human and divine, and thus a philosopher who is between wise and ignorant. Love is the desire to have the good always, and so love is the desire for immortality. Diotima explains this through the human desire to beget, not only achieving social deathlessness through bodily offspring, but also begetting in the soul and producing manifested virtue in kleos, poetry, and good governance. And these offspring are more beautiful and more immortal than ones of the body. So Diotima says, in number 3 on your handout, this is deathlessness in a mortal being. The divine is equated with the immortal, and immortality thus rests on the foundation of a body-soul distinction. A similar preliminary step can be found in the Meno and the Phaedrus, which are number 4 and 5 on your handout, which I will pass over for the sake of time. But we can see in them and in the Symposium that philosophical muesis is an understanding of the distinction between the immortal soul and the mortal body, that is, the nature of a human, combined with a defining of terms after which the philosopher inquires. Thus, the first step of philosophy is purification of the body. The philosopher, in order to understand anything else that concerns human existence, must first understand that the soul's pure existence, in the end, is distinct from the body. The teleia of philosophy consist of comprehending sensible images and intelligible images in order to grasp the original forms in which the images participate. Diotima uses the image of a ladder, epanabathmois, as you can see in item number 6. The initiate must begin with loving a particular beautiful body, and then comes to understand that one absolute beauty belongs to all beautiful bodies. He must then value beautiful souls, and then beauty in custom and laws, seeing that these are all akin to each other. From observances, he turns to branches of knowledge and looks upon beauty en masse and contemplates it, producing conversation and meditation in philosophy, until he beholds a single knowledge of beauty, beauty absolute, which is the climactic vision or epoptica of learning. The method for proceeding from sensible images to intelligible images and recognizing the unity of an idea as shared amongst many particulars is recollection, anamnesis. The Phaedo and the Meno establish anamnesis as being of past knowledge of the form realm, or true existence that the soul had before it was embodied, and as being the method of return to the divine origin of the soul. Thus, recollection temporarily returns the soul while embodied to its prenatal state of form immediacy. So on the one hand, anamnesis is of the soul's past knowledge. On the other hand, anamnesis is through the senses. Concluding his example in the Phaedo of the recollection of absolute sameness through equal and unequal rocks, which you can see in number 7, Socrates says that using sense perception, aesthesis, to recover knowledge is recollection. Anamnesis then is an activity, the practice by which we attain memory of an idea. How then does one use sense perceptions? In the myth of the chariot of the soul in the Phaedrus, which you can see in number 8, Socrates describes the process by which the soul chariot can return to the hyper-Uranian realm. The proper usage of sense perceptions, which serve as reminders, hupomnena, is to collect them by means of reason, according to kind. This reasonable sorting is recollection of the forms, and is later recast in terms of dialectic, as you can see in number 9, quote, seeing scattered things to gather them into one idea, and in number 10, again to be able to divide according to kind. In passage number 8, the activity of collecting sense perceptions is explicitly called the teleia of philosophy, and linked to the celestial or harmonious origin of the soul, when and where it was in the immediate presence of the forms amongst a divine chorus. We conclude the teleia by returning to the analogy between philosophy and mystery ritual as laid out in an important passage of the Phaedo, which is number 11. This passage is distinctly Bacchic Orphic, though there is terminology overlap with other Eleusinian mysteries. The Bacchoi, in contrast to the Thyrsus bearers, are those who achieved in the Bacchic rites full contact with the divine Dionysus. If we translate this into Eleusinian language, we might say that there are many mystes, but few epoptes. However, the Eleusinian mysteries were generally repeated, and so the tone of exclusivity would be lost. The point, however, is that the completedness of the rites is marked by being momentarily in the immediate presence of the divine. Analogously, only those who have rightly philosophized, that is, only those who have achieved the climactic vision of the forms, have perfected their relationship with the divine. And as we have seen, this is achieved only through philosophic teleia of rightly using the reminders of sense perception. Far from being a step to be abandoned as soon as possible, the senses are a necessary part of philosophic learning. As for epopteia, in mystery rites it is experienced the first year as part of the teleia, in which instance the climactic revelation is experienced with vision dulled. Upon repetition, however, the initiate is able to fully view the divine experience. In philosophic terms, we can equate general or first-time teleia with the interaction with sensible and intelligible images, while the moment of recollecting the forms is equated with the epopteia. Though this instance is the purpose of the rites, it is not the entire rite. Philosophy is not a stasis of knowledge or revelation, but an activity of inquiry resulting in an instance of memory. At the top of Diotima's ladder, which you can see in item number 12, after going through the erotica muesis and after performing teleia with beautiful images, the initiate sees beauty itself. Note that the final vision of beauty occurs suddenly, ex aephnes, which indicates that the vision is not the product of discursive thought, but that discursive thought produces a state of being made ready to perceive truth when it is revealed. The revelatory nature of true existence is reinforced by the passivity of sense perception and form vision alike. If aesthesis is understood as a passive part of the intellect, then the instance of knowing is also passive, since it is not fashioned by the intellect but revealed to it. The passivity of aesthesis is an inherent part of the soul's function. In the Philebus, which you see in number 13, aesthesis is defined as the passive experience, pathos, of the soul and mind together. Soul and body, together. The revelation of the divine, occurring at the completion of mystery rites, provides eschatological benefits. Likewise, the vision of the forms allows the philosopher to have a knowledge of true existence analogous to the mystery initiate's improved relationship with the divinity. In the case of the mysteries, the relationship translates into divine help in the afterlife. In the case of philosophy, as you can see in number 14, the soul, through achieving the climactic vision, becomes more similar to the object of its thought, pure and true. I'm going to skip number 15, but number 16, the vision itself that the philosopher sees is of an existence that consists of perfect performance of the rites that are performed on earth. And this passage is from the Phaedrus. The prominence of ritual language in this passage is not simply to create a sense of mystery and awe, but rather corresponds with the preceding passages of the Phaedrus, in which the process of philosophical learning is also presented in ritual language. The divine realm is perfected performance of the rites, all the way from oasis to epopteia. The choruses and motions of the mystery rites were understood to be earthly reflections of the movements and harmonies of the stars. Likewise, while practicing philosophical rites of anamnesis through aesthesis, the motions of the human soul become similar to the divine cosmic soul, which leads the circular movement of stars and gods, performing perfect rites and being in contact with the divine forms constantly. We now move on to the repetitive nature of rites, both philosophic and mystery. The descriptive echoes between corporeal engagement with sensible images and noetic vision of the forms, that is, between original ideas and objects which participate in them, allows Plato to indicate a closeness between the beginning and end of the philosophical process, and present learning not so much as a linear progression from sensible to abstracted, but as a cyclical process. This repetitive framework is further confirmed by the relationship between epopteia and teleia in mystery context. The argument for descriptive proximity of the forms and sensible images to each other does not remove the necessity of dialectic, but cements its place in the process. While first and later performances of the teleia make the full experience of the epopteia attainable, the epopteia itself drives the performance of the teleia in the first instance, and imbues it with deeper significance in later iterations. Likewise, the soul's glimpses of the forms are achieved by the intervening philosophical processes of sensing and recollecting, and simultaneously inform these activities. A specific state of mind or disposition is a precondition for the divine contact offered in the epopteia. In order to be in the presence of the deity, the mystery initiates had to go through extensive rites until they were in such a spiritual, emotional, and psychosomatic state so as to be able to experience the presence of divinity. In philosophical learning, recollection, that is, dividing and collecting sense perceptions by means of reason, leads the soul of the philosopher to an analogous state in which it is able to receive form vision in and through the sensible images it is engaging with. That is, it is purified enough of the body to see particulars as particulars of unities and to grasp the original unities through them. A prominent misconception of the mysteries is the idea that a secret doctrine taught to initiates is the key benefit of the rites. However, Aristotle says that the mystery initiate does not learn, mathein, anything, but rather experiences, pathein, something, and is prepared thus, diatathenai. The something that they experience is contact with the divine, and the preparation is for navigating the afterlife. Understanding the rites as relational and repeatable makes it easier to understand their experiential rather than doctrinal nature. Repetition would be pointless for a secret doctrine once it is learned. Instead, mystery teleia establish a privileged relationship with the deity and are repeatable to strengthen that relationship. An epopteia is a moment in which the initiate is understood to be in the immediate presence of the divine. As such, the repetition would have the purpose of reinforcing the memory of that experience and the initiate's relationship with the deity. The rites, therefore, are not lived experiences proceeding to doctrine, but rather an experience proceeding to the same experience more fully realized. Philosophic learning improves the philosopher's relationship with, or knowledge of, the forms, much like the teleia and epopteia especially improve initiate's relationship with the deity. Such a framework for philosophy clarifies Plato's presentation of philosophy not as a one-time use doctrine, but as an iterative lived experience. The final rung in Diotimus' speech is not a theory or a doctrine of forms, but a vision of true existence. In item number 17, the vision is described in a series of negatives as an ineffable experience. The revelation of beauty or any other original absolute is not a one-time disclosure of a hidden truth of the cosmos, but a special perception of existing reality. Ritual epopteia is a momentary experience which affects the rest of the initiate's life and afterlife. Likewise, the recollection of the forms is an instance in the life of the philosopher which informs the rest of his life and towards another instance of which he aims. The idea of a one-directional ascent to a doctrinal truth is incompatible with Plato's representation of philosophy as mystery rite. The significance of repetition is that the material and themselves were not different mustes and epoptes, but rather experienced differently. So engaging with sensible images is not other than engaging with the forms, but rather a dull and blurry engagement that propels the viewer to a clear and full-sighted vision of the original in which it participates. In mystery rites, the same emotions, processions, dances, music, and visions that result in the first instance in limited contact with the divine, when visited again the following years, result in a clear revelation of the divine that informs the rest of the initiate's life. Likewise, it is through and in studying music and the stars, falling in love and having conversations, that we can glimpse the divine vision of the forms. My final point is to address the issue of the philosopher's profanation, given the necessity of logoi in philosophy, by examining Plato's criticism and qualification of language, both spoken and written, as an image in light of the topos of mystery ineffability. In mystery context, profanation is speaking about or otherwise revealing to the uninitiated the content of the mysteries, specifically the epopteia, which was hidden from public view, unlike the processions and choruses that preceded the climactic part of the teleia. If the epopteia is understood as a divine experience rather than the imparting of a secret doctrine, then a necessary assumption for profanation is the incommunicability of an experience outside the realm of normal human experience and outside the realm of normal human expression. To reduce such an immediate and extraordinary experience to human verbal expression, which would, by its rational nature, be unable to express the experience, would be profanation. If we transfer the issue of profanation to philosophy as mystery, then philosophic profanation would be expressing in words the philosopher's vision of the forms. Of course, this becomes problematic because the Platonic dialogues abound in descriptions of the forms. How does Plato circumvent the issue of philosophic profanation? He calls attention to the weakness of written words. This is the philosopher's disclaimer. Verbal expression is an attempt to mediate the immediate, and therefore one can understand that logos will fail to some degree to communicate any illogical experience. Not in the negative sense of being subrational, but in the sense of being removed from logos and reason. Though the Phaedrus criticizes written words as images of spoken words, the same can be said about spoken words and the experience of grasping the forms. In the Symposium, the vision of beauty is described in a series of negatives, and in the Phaedrus, which you can see in number 18 on the handout, Plato prefaces his description of the Hyperuranian realm of the divine chorus by saying that it is indescribable even by the best of poets. The attention called to the image nature or mediating nature of words creates a distance between them and the originals they represent. This division is necessary for communication to occur, providing the necessity and reason for expression or documentation to happen, and simultaneously protecting the non-semantic from the crime of symbolization. In the Cratylus, which you see in number 19, an image is defined as ultimately unlike the model. Division is maintained by criticism, not just of writing, but also of words in general. Emphasizing the division allows the experience to exist separate from and unprofaned by its expression, and allow its expression, distinctly understood as a representation, to point to that which it represents. The attention drawn to words then acknowledges them as images separate from the original experience of the philosopher, and thus avoids the crime of profanation. I return to the mystic philosophic relationship between image and original to discuss the reason for the genre of Plato's philosophic writing, and how the dialogues themselves work around the issue of profanation. The dialogue form not only preserves an image of living dialectic, but it draws attention to its status as such. To see through an image to the original one must recognize the image as an image. The dialogues are ultimately dramatic in nature, excising elements from the real world and placing them on the stage. Drama is about rearranging matter and therefore shows that matter doesn't rest in itself, but is imbued with forms. Thus, images participate in the original. Metatheater is the attention called to artificiality, that is, image nature, with the result that the audience engages with the theater beyond the image presented on stage. I will conclude with the myth of Zeus from the Phaedrus and its metatheatrical nature. Firstly, it is a scene within a scene, a Platonic dialogue inside a Platonic dialogue. Secondly, it reveals the written text as written by criticizing it. As images, the dialogues at points call attention to their status as such, and as a result are a sort of metatheater, calling for reader engagement with them as sensible images of an original dialectic. In criticizing writing in his written dialogue, Plato creates a metatheatric component that forces the audience to ask, why did Plato write this critique, and why did Plato write this dialogue, and what does he mean? If written work has the danger of replacing living thought, as thus insists, then Plato's myth, and dialogues too, overcome that flaw by insisting on its image nature and inability to replace living thought, and by triggering the audience's own critical engagement. The metatheatrical element of a written critique of writing activates a participatory theater, much like the drama is understood to make up the epopteia of mystery rites. As an image, writing only reminds us of what we already know, as you can see in number 20 on the handout. Likewise, theater is a representation beyond pure representation, and both provoke audience engagement. The written dialogues expose their image nature, and by doing so, clear the reader's vision to see the original experience dialectic that they imitate on the Platonic stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Moment. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Now it's time for discussion. Sorry, someone pushed the typing. Please don't make typing, please. Now, if you want to ask a question, press the please press the raise hand button. I can see two questioners. First, Mr. Altman.
Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia, for your paper. I wonder, I guess I want to put the word secularization as a Platonic version of profanation. In other words, the over implication of the transcendent noetic realm with the sensible, which seemed to me to be an undercurrent of your paper that runs right through it. I would push back on that as an example of secularizing the very phenomenon that you're talking about. It seemed to me that on both ends of it, in other words, an unargued assumption that simply the world is the image of the eternal forms, which seems to me a view that's primarily dependent on the Timaeus. And then on the other hand, the view that our only access to the forms is through sensibles, which I think is why you used the recollection argument in the Phaedo. I don't think that does, I think that secularizes on both ends the role of mystery language in Plato's dialogues, which I see as an attempt to break us out of the everyday, i.e. out of the sensible, and to get us to think in a different way. So the example I would challenge you with is when Socrates in the jail cell with Plato, says it's not because of these old sinews and bones, that's not the cause of why I'm here. It's because of justice that I'm here. And it seems to me that on a double sense, it's not that I don't know. I guess I'm challenging you to prove to me that Plato wants you to discover what justice is through the physical or sensible phenomenon of Socrates in the jail cell, and on the other hand, whether in any sense of the word that Socrates has discovered justice and hence is sitting in the jail cell because of his, because of a variety of sensible experiences that have now led him to move to the form. So I challenge you with the word secularization as a Platonic form of profanation and challenge you to prove to me you're not guilty of that.
Right, thank you so much for this comment. I think secularization is a great term, and I will take that into consideration. So this paper is part of a larger focus in my dissertation of working out the place of mystery language throughout Greco-Roman poetry and philosophy. As for the issue of sensible images as opposed to intelligible images, I think because of the passage in the Symposium, intelligible things such as writings or conversation are also images, though perhaps not sensible, of the forms and through which Plato or Socrates or philosophers can also come to this vision. So not only sensible images, but I think sensible images do have a important place in the philosophic process.
Okay, thank you. Can we next speaker? Can we go next speaker? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your paper. It was really, really interesting. I'll have a very brief question, but I was wondering about the relationship between Plato's uses of mystery language that you highlight and different religious aspects in his work and different uses of religious language that he does, especially in the Republic. And I'm curious about two specific things. The first is the description of the philosophical activity as a theoria. And the second one is the description of the philosophical discovery in terms of epiphany, especially in using the terms like phainomai. So how do you see these two things fit together with the activity of philosophy as sort of like a mystery rite that you describe in your paper?
Sorry, my internet connection is a little bit unstable, but I managed to catch you. You were asking about philosophy as epiphany and the use of vision. I think that's one of the language-wise, one of the sense things that Plato does a lot is the seeing of ideas, I guess, or of forms, or when one comes to knowledge. And in the mystery rite, the apophthea was generally understood to be a very vision-heavy experience, though the other senses are certainly involved. And with light and something being revealed, the idea of a seeing of something of great importance is very important to mystery language, and I think Plato's drawing on that when he speaks of philosophy in terms of epiphany. Thank you for your question.
Okay. Thank you. If you have any questions, please ask.
Can I ask one question?
Sorry, moment.
Okay.
Okay, moment.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Notomi, please.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's very interesting to see many mystery languages in Plato, and I wonder, just simply said, which option you take? One is philosophy and mystery, kind of a unity, the same thing or same activity. That is one option. The other is Plato or philosophy use language of mystery, although they are different. The third is just metaphor. So which position you take?
I would say more so the latter. I don't think that Plato or Socrates is saying that that philosophy is the same thing as, but that he's using the framework or language of mysteries in order to express certain ideas about his system of philosophic learning, perhaps in terms that would be that would be more understood by his audience, and through which he could establish certain relationships or frameworks between different ideas without having to go into great detail about it. So more so the latter as a metaphor. He uses the language and imagery of mystery religions in order to portray philosophy as analogous to it, rather than as a mystery itself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because I got the impression that you prefer the former, because some kind of experience, seeing the forms, that kind of things are very similar to mysteries. But yeah, it's okay. Thank you.